right now.
Already?
Got it. Yes, already. And let me go over here and go live on Facebook.
There's a little preview.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul.
Swipe Diane.
Like Diane. Got it. Mini live stream. Seems like it
Our
worked.
cat. Axie.
As soon as this comes up, I'll introduce myself. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and tonight we're going to continue our study of energy, mind, and matter, whether you think it matters or not. And we're in section 2, universal non-spiritual energy systems. They put physical energies in parentheses. And that's on page 469 of the original book. It's in paper 42, section 2.1. It's where we are. Now let's say a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Pray that you'll open our hearts and minds that we might absorb some of this and share it with others. We thank you for the opportunity to do this. We thank you for everyone that listens to these meetings and grows from them. And we thank you for all those people that will listen to them in the future. So we're hoping this will continue on after we're gone. We thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for your son, Michael, and our local universe mother spirit. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen. Okay, everybody. Universal non-spiritual energy systems, and you're up first, dear. So unmute yourself and I'll mute me.
2. Universal non-spiritual energy systems, physical energies. It is indeed difficult to find suitable words in the English language whereby to designate and wherewith to describe the various levels of force and energy, physical, mental, or spiritual. These narratives cannot altogether follow your accepted definitions of force, energy, and power. There is such paucity of language that we must use these terms in multiple meanings. In this paper, for example, the word energy is used to denote all phases and forms of phenomenal motion, action, and potential, while force is applied to the pre-gravity and power to the post-gravity stages of energy.
Okay, so we're going to start with difficult things right off the bat. Aren't y'all excited?
Yes.
Hi, Pam. Hi, Jane.
Hey.
Okay, and hey, Rodney. I didn't know if I said hello to you or not. I was
You did,
in the
but
middle of
Hi,
getting
Ron.
started. All right. First of all, they don't like our definitions for energy, force, energy, and power, right? Because this says we can't follow your accepted definitions for each one of these because they're so vague, really, more than anything. But it's interesting on this very first paragraph, they're talking about the levels of force as energy, physical, mental, and spiritual. Notice, and that's part of the title to this paper, that there's actually energy and force associated with not only the physical energy, but the mental energy and the spiritual energy. So that circuit that the infinite spirit controls, the mental circuit, has its own energy patterns and has its own force patterns, just like the spiritual circuit from the eternal sun has its own energy and physical force mechanisms. Okay, and there's Millie coming up too. Also, they say that our language has multiple meanings of all these terms we just talked about, and the fact that what they're going to teach us about is all phases of and forms of the phenomena of both motion, action, and potential. And it says force is applied to pre-gravity and power is post-gravity stages of energy. So when they talk about anything to do with the unqualified absolute, or anything before gravity takes over in matter, then they're talking about force. And that's talking about the unqualified absolute. But when they switch over past the unqualified absolute and they start talking about physical matter past that, this is the post-gravity stage. They use the word power, okay, because it's actually moving physical mechanisms, which is aligned with paradise itself. So they use the word power to control these things and those type of stages of energy. All right. So let's take the next paragraph. Would you take the next paragraph and take actually the next two paragraphs because it's covered both.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I will, however, endeavor to lessen conceptual confusion by suggesting the advisability of adopting the following classification for cosmic force, emergent energy, and universe power, physical energy. Space potency. This is the unquestioned free space presence of the unqualified absolute. The extension of this concept connotes the universe force space potential inherent in the functional totality of the unqualified absolute, while the intention of this concept implies the totality of cosmic reality, universes, which emanated eternity-wise from the never beginning, never ending, never moving, never changing Isle of Paradise.
Okay, so to understand what they're talking about in this paper, they have to break this down. These forces, emergent energies, and universe power or physical energies into separate categories. And you'll notice here the first one is space potency. Then on down here a little further, I got some pictures to show you, but down here a little further, they start talking about primordial force, number 2. You see that one? And then they start to talk about emergent energies, and they break the emergent energies down into several categories too. Okay, so we're going to start at the top and work our way through this very slowly, hopefully to understand it all. And that's what these pictures are for. Okay, and the first one we're going to talk about is space potency. And anytime you talk about any movement or any direction by the unqualified absolute, you have what? Now, before I go on with that, first let's go back to the forward from last time. Remember we talked about the 7 absolutes, okay, on this picture? And we're talking about the 7th absolute, the unqualified absolute. Notice here it says the unrevealed physical absolute. Okay, so when you're talking about the unqualified absolute, you're talking about a physical absolute that controls everything non-deified. Okay, and that's the important point of this. You have a deified function, which is the qualified absolute, and then you have an undeified function, which is the unqualified absolute. And who brings it together? The universal absolute, right? Remember that from last time? Okay, so what we're talking about is anytime you have movement of space potency, then you're talking about the unqualified absolute, always. Okay, and you'll notice from this picture, I'm going to go over each one of these pictures so you can make the connection from the unqualified absolute to the physical side. Okay, because the unqualified absolute starts everything physical. Okay, so it says here that the space potency, which is the power of the unqualified absolute, and this is unpervaded space to start out with. In other words, this is nothingness. So the unqualified it comes from paradise and goes out into nothingness, and he manipulates absoluta, the most basic form of anything. Okay, and that's why it's called absolutum. It's absolute within itself. Okay, so it says here that potential force becomes active and primordial in response to the space presence of the primary force organizers. And you'll notice in this little picture, right in the middle is the primary force organizer, right? Remember when we studied these once before? And you'll notice here the unqualified absolutes down here. It's like a hand. He's got his control over this. And he creates this primordial force and segregates it from the primordial force. This is why it's called segregata. And you're going to see this here in this paragraph and just in this statement in just a second, and hands it off to the primary force organizers. Okay. And the primary force organizers basically take this pure energy that's non-responsive to gravity and does what? Makes it responsive to gravity. Okay. So it says here, primary force is also called pure energy not responsive to gravity, or segregata. Okay. So it's still not, it's segregated from the unqualified absolute, and it's still, at this point, they're segregating it from the grasp of the unqualified absolute and moving it over to the primary force organizers who make it responsive to what? Paradise gravity. Okay. So this is how everything comes into being. That's why this is important. So it goes from being absoluta to segregata, because it's segregated from the unqualified absolute at this point. Okay. Once it becomes segregata, then we're going to go on where it goes from that in just a minute. Let's hit this paragraph and then we'll go on. Rodney, would you take this paragraph, please?
I have a question though.
Oh, go ahead.
It seems to me that what they're also saying, as far as space potency, space beyond the master universe, where there's nothing out there, no ultimatum,
Right.
automatons,
Right.
that there would be no potency in that area.
Right.
The potency,
Because it's totally still under the grasp of the unqualified absolute. That's right. Right.
that's what makes it potent.
Right. Right. You have to think of it this way. The unqualified absolute extends out past everything, past all the outer space levels, right? Because
not-
that's the beginning
not
of all
forever.
things. Not
Doesn't-
forever. No, it doesn't go on forever. It actually tells us that the master universe, the 7 super universes, are considered what? All that there is at this time. Those outer space levels don't really come into our consciousness at all, really, because of what? There's no beings out there. I mean, there's no human beings out there. There's no creator sons. There's none of the 7 of the deities, right?
So, Roger,
All right. Yeah,
the unqualified absolute only deals with what's inside of the master universe.
that's right.
Although the Father is still beyond
Yeah.
all this.
Well, he permeates into the everything. The unqualified permeates into all four outer space levels too. But he's concerned only. I lost. Right. He's concerned only with the 7 super universes and the master universe. Right. Okay. Yeah, Jane. What was your question?
Roger, to understand your concept here, I'm hanging on 2 words, the word presence and the word
Yeah.
concept.
Right.
What's
your confusion about them?
Well, it's how can I say, it's not concrete to understand it, but nothing here has happened yet in this
Right.
paragraph.
Right, yeah, nothing, basically, what they're talking about is taking nothingness where the only part of God that's functioning is the unqualified absolute, and it's not deified. Let me tell you why it's not deified.
Okay.
Okay, maybe it'll make it a little more clear. It's not deified because there are no deity type beings that permeate it at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not deified until some type of deity being is active in it. Makes
Correct.
sense?
Yes,
That's why it's
and that's why they
undeified.
call it a presence, a free space presence,
Presence.
and
Right.
extension of this. It's a concept. It's a
It's
concept
a
of the
concept.
potentiality.
That's right. But it's the potential of everything, right? It's still within
Yeah.
God the Father, but it's still just potential at this point. Make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. They rearranged my screen here.
Oh, I was supposed to read.
Okay, well, don't yet, Rodney, because they put you at the bottom. Let's let Jane read. That way I keep my brain straight.
Okay,
You know, that's hard to do.
I understand.
Okay. The phenomena indigenous to the nether side of paradise probably embraced three zones of absolute force, presence, and performance: the fulcral zone of the unqualified absolute, the zone of the Isle of Paradise itself, and the intervening zone of certain unidentified equalizing and compensating agencies or functions. These triconcentric zones are the centrum of the paradise cycle of cosmic reality.
Very important. This is the cycle of cosmic reality. And
This
I
is where
hate it.
we get the three circles.
Yeah, that's why you see the three circles. That's paradise itself. And I never liked this picture very much. I didn't create this myself because really it's misleading because space actually starts in the bottom, okay, by the unqualified absolute of nether paradise and comes back in through the top. And they got the arrows going just the opposite. You see that? Okay, so it's not really correct as far as I'm concerned. But this is really the underneath view of paradise itself. You have to think of it that way. So if you're under paradise and you're looking up, this is what you see. Make sense? All right. And what they have is they got an arrow north showing that the oblong area of paradise, the north direction is at the end of one of the two oblong areas. Okay, so if you looked at the east and west, it's narrower than the north and south, which is longer. Okay, and that's what paradise looks like. Okay, so if you look at paradise from the bottom, okay, you'll notice here it's got the zone of infinity right in the center. Okay, what would that be above it? That would be the dwelling place of God the Father, would it not? The center of paradise. It's where he always dwells. All right. And then they have an unnamed area that surrounds that. And then they have an area, what they call the pulsing heart of paradise. So you can think of paradise itself has a rhythm or a beat that constantly goes on. Okay. And why would you think that has a pulsing area in itself? That we're going to know because of the universe respiration, which we're going to look at next. But it also has a pulsating mid zone. You see that right in this area right here, right? And outside that is the paradise center of the unqualified absolute. And the unqualified absolute emulates from the bottom of paradise. All space comes from nether paradise and comes back in where? On
Good.
top of paradise. right? That's why
Correct.
this is a little misleading. Okay, now, this is a perfect example of what I just talked about. If you look at this, this is if we look at paradise from the side, this little green area would be considered paradise, right?
Yeah,
Out here would be what's called pervaded space. In pervaded space, this goes all the way around paradise, right?
Like a
In
donut.
that like a donut, right? In that space of pervaded space, guess what's there? All 7 of the super universes. Okay, so if you look at this, the 7 super universes would be surrounding this, going around like this, right?
Correct.
You'll also notice here that it has a vertical reservoir above it, a vertical reservoir below, and guess what comes out of this bottom part right here where this arrow is? The unqualified absolute. Okay, that's where the unqualified absolute starts at. The unqualified absolute ends where? Back here at the top. Okay, it's a big cycle. So what are these 2 big areas called the vertical reservoirs above and below? These things expand and contract and affect the pervaded space itself. So this is what causes universe respiration. Okay, as this thing gets bigger, this thing, the pervaded space, gets smaller, and we're on a contraction area, right? So as that contracts, it appears to us that all the universes are going to crash into paradise. Okay, it's a 2 billion year cycle. If it's going the opposite direction, then all the universes look like they're going away from paradise. What's happening right now? We're all going away from paradise, aren't we? That's why the scientists think that there's a Big Bang theory. Okay, but it all has to do with this universe respiration. All 7 super universes follow this. All right, and you'll notice here it has mid-space zones in between each one of these. And what's the function of the mid-space zones? There's nothing in the mid-space zones. There's nothing in the vertical reservoir. It allows the vertical reservoir to expand and contract, and it allows our pervaded space to get bigger and smaller. Make sense?
Almost
So
like
you have to think it. Yeah, it's like the donut is swelling, right?
So the outer space is also part of
The outer space is part this. It will be part of this pervaded space. Okay, as they get developed, right? Right now, we have a limit to the universe, right? The 7 super universes. When you get out past the 7 super universes, paradise considered you're outside the universe itself, because they have not developed that for celestial beings yet. Okay, does that help out at all, seeing this picture?
yes.
Okay, so let's go back to space potency. Remember, I have to go back to this because I don't want to confuse anybody. Remember, space potency was what? It was part of the unqualified absolute, right? Okay, so we know what space potency is about. So let's go on with it a little bit more. Let's see, Pam, will you take that long paragraph there?
space potency.
Uh-huh.
Space potency is a pre-reality. It is the domain of the unqualified absolute and is responsive only to the personal grasp of the universal Father, notwithstanding that it is seemingly modifiable by the presence of the primary master force organizers.
Okay, so what's it telling us? It's telling us that the unqualified absolute, or space potency, is pre-reality. Why would they call it pre-reality? because there's nothing functioning out there except the unqualified absolute and his agents, right? So it's before it becomes real to us, right? The only thing it's responsive to is what? The universal Father. And why do you think the unqualified absolute is part of the universal Father? Because without the universal Father, the unqualified absolute would have no domain to work in, right? Make sense? So really, in reality, it's part of God. Okay. Then it is modified by the primary force organizers, who are the agents of whom? They're the agents of the unqualified absolute when it comes right down to it, right? Okay, because he passes everything off to him. I'm going to give y'all a little bit of expanded view of this picture so you can read a little bit of it. Can you see that a little bit better?
Yeah.
Really
Oh.
small type on it. Okay, so we just said that the primary force organizers are part of the universal absolute, the unqualified absolute, right? Okay, so let's read through this. The primary force organizer sets into motion around him puissant energy, that's pre-energy, right? Which is not at first responsive to the paradise gravity pull at which point he retires. So this paradise force organizer here, let me see if I can get my pointer going here. You see this paradise force organizer right here?
Yeah.
He takes this from the unqualified absolute from paradise, right? This is the unqualified absolute. He takes this puissant energy, pre-energy, right? And makes it associable to what? The paradise gravity pull. Okay? You see this gravity energy down here? So let's go to the next one. An associate transcendental master force organizer transforms the space energy from the puissant to the gravity stage when ultimatums appear in response to the circular paradise gravity, but not to linear gravity. So at this point, the associate transcendental master force organizer, this guy, makes the puissant energy responsive to gravity, the paradise gravity. But at this point, it is as, oops, shoot. I got off the wrong thing there. Here we go. At this point, it converts from puissant energy or absolutum to ultimatums. This is where it goes from a non-physical state to a physical state, because at this point, the ultimatums is what are the building blocks for the atoms. Okay, so what this guy does, the associate master force organizer, he kicks in the ultimatums, and it's connected to gravity energy, which is the paradise energy. At this point, it's still not linear gravity. What's the difference between paradise gravity and linear gravity?
Linear
Gravity is the gravity we feel pulling us from the suns, right? That's the normal gravity of a solar system. That would be linear gravity. Within that solar system, though, paradise gravity controls everything. So paradise gravity controls the solar system, and the linear gravity kicks in to pull the planets close to the suns of the solar systems. Okay, the difference. All right, so let's go on one more. The associated master force organizer may retire when the electrons appear. What's the electrons have to do with? The ultimatums, right? When the electrons appear, which responds to the linear gravity. So the electrons make us responsible to linear gravity, matter, right? Okay. And the universe power centers can be assigned at that point. Remember what the universe power centers were? Everything physical, the universe power centers control, right? So this is how it works. Let me bring this back down. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I missed a step there. The
Oh,
automatons, how do they come into existence?
the associate master force organizers create the automatons. Okay.
How?
So the automaton is the basic building block. And once the automatons are created, then the electrons can start to be created to be controlled eventually by the power centers.
So
Okay.
the automatons are created from Frisant energy.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So you have the absolutum, then you have the ultimatons, right? And eventually you have linear gravity and you have matter, right? Because when you have the linear gravity, you're at the point where the automatons, the basic building block for all matter, create the electrons, and with the creation of the electrons, the protons come, and then all the elements come after that. Okay?
And
All
what's
the elements.
Segregata?
Segregata, it segregates power from the universal absolute to make it active for paradise gravity, right?
Interesting.
You follow me? Yeah, okay. Let's go on to the next step. So now we have electrons because of what? Because of these ultimatons here, right? I keep thinking y'all see my finger pointing to it, but you can't. Okay, then we have electrons. Let's see what the electrons do. Once the electrons and other particles which respond to linear gravity appear, the universe power director takes over and awaits the arrival of whom? Creator Sun, right? So what's happened here? The universe powers directors control the electrons, and they're responsive to universe power or gravata, right? Gravity from paradise. They make it responsive for the electrons to start, and all matter starts to come into existence. And guess what happens? A creator sun is assigned to it, right? So the area is there, all the matter is starting up. So the creator sun comes along and boom, who's the chief master architect? The creator sons. And whom else? They left somebody out here. Whom else? The local universe mother spirit, right? A creator sun can't do anything without a local universe mother spirit, right? That's our male influence and female influence. And I don't care what anybody tells you, there's a difference between a female influence and a male influence. Okay. You can say people are the same all you want. I don't believe it. Sorry, they're not. We're different. We're built to be different. There's a reason we're built to be different. It's God's plan, right? And whatever God wants to put together, who am I to say is wrong, right? Okay. Enough said. We have another little short sentence. Melly, would you read our short sentence there? Unmute your mic first, Melly. There you go.
Universa, space potency, is spoken of as absoluta.
Okay. So I put this slide in. I want you to take the next paragraph in a second, Millie. You don't get off that easy. Okay. I put this slide in here to remind us of the different types of reality there is, right? So we have paradise energy, they call it monada, right? They have Havona energy, the next stage, that's called triada, right? And then we have universe power, which we live in, and that's called gravada. Now, why do you think they call it gravada? It's responsive
Gravity.
to paradise gravity. That's right, right? Triada has three basic building elements, right? A, B, and C, and that's why there's 1,000 Havona atoms, okay? Just above that, though, we see that paradise has absolutum that's totally different, okay? Different type of reality. We also have down here universe power or gravada. And in universe power, we have basically two types of things in an atom that creates our 100 atoms. And that's what? Electrons and protons. But keep in mind, before that happened, what did we have? Ultimatums, right? Okay, so we have 100 atoms. Now, what you're going to say, these doubters always say, wait a minute, there's more elements than that, right? If you look at the elemental chart, last time I looked, there's more elements than 100 atoms, wasn't there? Huh?
Yeah.
Am I crazy? No, there are. But there are only 100 atoms that make up those elements. Okay, that's what they're talking about. Where
Different
in Havona, yeah, they're derived from these 100 atoms. Okay, where Havona has 1,000 atoms, so it's a lot different. There's three things, right? So we have monada, triada, and gravada, right? Okay. Primordial force, number 2. Millie, would you take that first paragraph for us?
Yes, primordial force. This represents the first basic change in space potency and may be one of the nether paradise functions of the unqualified absolute. We know that the space presence going out from the nether paradise is modified in some manner from that which is incoming. But regardless of any such possible relationships, the openly recognized transmutation of the space potency into primordial force is the primary differentiating function of the tension presence of the living paradise force organizers.
Okay, so what they're telling us, when you pass, okay, let's go back here for a second. I want to make sure y'all understand this. When you pass this right here, space potency from its original form to the paradise force organizers, it becomes what? Primordial force. Okay. And then that's what they believe is one of the functions of neither paradise and the unqualified absolute. Okay. They know that this first force comes in through the unqualified absolute. It changes when they hand it off, if you would, to the paradise force organizers, then it becomes what? Primordial force. Okay. Everybody looks confused. I hope y'all are all right. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
pre-gravity.
Yeah, pre-gravity.
Passive and potential force becomes active, and primordial in response to the resistance afforded by the space presence of the primary eventuated master force organizers. Force is now emerging from the exclusive domain of the unqualified absolute into the realms of multiple response. Response to certain primal motions initiated by the God of action, and thereby to certain compensating motions emanating from the universal absolute. Primordial force is seemingly reactive to transcendental causation in proportion to absoluteness.
Read that next little line too, Rodney.
Primordial force is sometimes spoken of as pure energy. On Uversa, we refer to it as segregata.
Segregata. Why would it be called segregata? It's segregated from the universal, for the unqualified absolute. Okay. All right, let's go back here for on this paragraph, the very first sentence. Notice here it says it's passed off to a primary eventuated master force organizer. What is an eventuated being? That's a being that's brought into existence as needed for that function. Okay. So this is they call him a primary eventuated master force organizer because he's a master force organizer, the very first one eventuated for this job. Okay, so that's why he's a primary eventuated master force organizer, right? And as a master force organizer, it takes the responsibility or exclusively from the unqualified absolute to the responsiveness of the God of action. And who is the God of action? Number 3 here, right? Yeah, the infinite spirit, the conjoint actor, right? That's who does the action. All right. So at this point, it goes from just being the domain of the unqualified absolute to the God of action, right? And so who comes into action with this? Because it has to have an action. What else has to come into existence? The universal absolute, because you have a God of action up here, the conjoint actor, who is deity, right? So you have to have someone to pass the deity and make it function with the undeity. So you have what? The universal absolute to do that. Okay. That's what all this forward was about, right? To explain all this to us. Okay. So at this point, we have a primary eventuated master force organizer who emerges from the domain of the unqualified absolute in response to primal motions initiated by the God of action, number 3, the third person of Trinity, right?
Spirit.
And then and then certain compensating motions emanating from the universal absolute. Why does the universal absolute have to get involved? Because there's deity involved in it.
Correct.
It's no longer a non-deity function. So at this point, you go from the universe that's being created being a non-deity universe, right? Or a section of a non-deity universe to a deified universe because it's who gets involved? The God of action or the infinite spirit, right? Make sense?
Mhm.
Make this come a little bit energy. And when this happens, it's spoken as pure energy. Pure energy. The basic for energy. And they call it on Uversa, they call it segregata because it's segregated from whom? The unqualified absolute, right? All right. And guess what happens when you segregate it from the unqualified absolute? It becomes what? Emergent energies, right? The third section, right? Because it's coming from basic nothingness to existence. Make sense? All right, so let's do the emergent energies. Okay, who's up? I think you are, Diane.
3, emergent energies. The passive presence of the primary force organizers is sufficient to transform space potency into primordial force, and it is upon such an activated space field that these same force organizers begin their initial and active operations. Primordial force is destined to pass through two distinct phases of transmutation in the realms of energy manifestation before appearing as universe power. These two levels of emerging energy are
The first one.
okay. A, puissant energy. This is the powerful directional mass motive. I don't know what that word is. Motivated, movemented, mighty tensioned, and forcible reacting energy, gigantic energy systems set in motion by the activities of the primary force organizers. This primary or puissant energy is not at first definitely responsive to the paradise gravity pull through, though probably yielding an aggregate mass of or space directional response to the collective group of absolute influences operative from the neither side of paradise. When energy emerges to the level of initial response to the circular and absolute gravity grasp of paradise, the primary force organizers give way to the functioning of their secondary associates.
Okay, so the third part of this is the emergent energies that appear, right? Okay, and they say here that it's the presence of the primary force organizers that takes this space potency and transforms it into the primordial force. Okay, so you go from nothingness to a force, right? All right, and as this happens, you have two different sections. You have puissant energies to begin with, and then eventually you get gravity energy. Okay, so the puissant energy is the most basic type of energy needed by the primary force organizers. Okay, and then when it turns into gravity energy, it's associated with the associate master force organizers. And that's what we're going to read about next. So, Lech, would you take the next one, the gravity energy? B?
Yeah, gravity energy. The now appearing gravity responding energy carries the potential of universe power and becomes the active ancestor of all universe matter. This secondary or gravity energy is the product of the energy elaboration resulting from the pressure presence and the tension trends set up by the associate transcendental master force organizers. In response to the work of these force manipulators, space energy rapidly passes from the puissant to the gravity stage, thus becoming directly responsive to the circular grasp of paradise, absolute gravity, while disclosing a certain potential for sensitivity to the linear gravity pull inherent in the soon appearing material mass of the electronic and the post-electronic stages of energy and matter. Upon the appearance of gravity response, the associate master force organizers may retire from the energy cyclones of space, provided the universe power directors are assignable to that field of action.
Okay, so once the gravity energy kicks in here, right, which is controlled by the associate transcendental master force organizer, once that gravity kicks in, then all matter is responsive to paradise gravity. Okay, and once the paradise gravity goes into effect, closely behind that is the linear gravity, okay, of material. All right. And upon the linear gravity appearing, the associate transcendental master force organizers pass off their work to whom? The universe power directors. Okay. And that's how it works. Okay. And at this point, who comes in to take over? The creator sons and the local universe mother spirit. Right?
That's why it takes so long for them to evolve.
That's why it takes so long for them to evolve. That's right. All right. So what you just read is how everything comes into existence, basically. Right? Jane, would you take the next one?
We are quite uncertain regarding the exact causes of the early stages of force evolution, but we recognize the intelligent action of the ultimate in both levels of emergent energy manifestation. Puissant and gravity energies, when regarded collectively, are spoken of on Urantia as ultimata.
Okay, remember when we have read references to God the ultimate? That's what they're talking about here. Okay, so it's God the ultimate that has taken these actions to make these causes to come into effect. Okay, and that's where they're saying here on your versa, it's considered ultimata, right? Which the God the ultimate controls. Okay. We still have more to go. We have universe power, Havona energy, transcendental, and Manata. You know, this is the different parts of reality. So it's a lot. Number 4. Pam, would you take number 4 for us, please? Unmute, Pam. There
Sorry.
you go. That's all right. 4, universe power.
Universe power, space force, has been changed into space energy and thence into the energy of gravity control. Thus has the physical energy been ripened to that point where it can be directed into channels of power and made to serve the manifold processes of the universe
Purposes.
creators.
Purposes, not process. It's the manifold purposes. Yeah.
Manifold purposes
But it's their purpose that they're talking about here, right?
of the
Okay.
universe creators. This work is carried on by the versatile directors, centers, and controllers of physical energy in the grand universe, the organized and inhabited creations. These universe power directors assume the more or less complete control of 21 of the 30 phases of energy constituting the present energy system of the 7 super universes. This domain of power energy matter is the realm of the intelligent activities of the sevenfold, functioning under the time-space over control of the supreme.
Okay. So the universe, now we've changed from, what was it? We changed from gravity energy to universe power. You see how it's ripening? And that's why they say ripen here. I think it's what they term it. It's just like an apple growing. In other words, you have a seed, and as it grows, it expands and it turns into an apple, right? So at this point, we have a physical creation, right? That universe power has taken over, and it's controlled by all the different power directors and all the beings that control all this stuff. And that's the energy system of the 7 super universes. All right. And it's under the control of God the sevenfold. And I had a slide of God the sevenfold I was going to bring up, but I'm going to skip it because we're getting too deep into this and we don't have time. But God the sevenfold includes God the Father, God the Son, God the Spirit, the Ancients of Days, the Supreme Being, both the Creator Son and the Creative Mother Spirit. Who did I forget? Anyway, that's part of this God the sevenfold. But the last person is God the Supreme, And that is who has the over control of the supreme. Now, who is the vicegerent of the supreme? We've learned this before in the universe until the supreme comes into full fruition. That's the seventh master spirit. Guess who is over our super universe? The seventh master spirit, right? All right. So he's in control of all this right now. All right. And it also says, goes on to say, on Uversa, we refer to the realm of the universe power as gravata. Why would they call it gravata in the universes? Because it's all responsive to what? Gravity,
Gravity.
right? Okay. Y'all are so smart, it makes me sick sometimes.
Mm,
Okay. Havona energy. Huh?
Don't get too sick.
Yeah. Really, Havona energy. Let's see, Millie, I think you're up next.
Again already. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
Havona energy. In concept, this narrative has been moving paradise word as transmuting space force has been followed level by level to the working level of the energy power of the universes of time and space. Continuing paradise word, there is next encountered a pre-existent phase of energy, which is characteristic of the central universe. Here, the evolutionary cycle seems to turn back upon itself. Energy power now seems to begin to swing back toward force, but force of a nature very force of a nature very unlike that of the space potency and primordial force. Havona energy systems are not dual, they are triune. This is the existential energy domain of the conjoint actor functioning in behalf of the paradise trinity.
Take the next sentence too, Millie, that little short one there.
On Uversa, these energies of Havona are known as triada.
Okay, so they went all the way down to the seven super universes, right? So they're taking a step back. Yeah, they're taking a step back to say there is another type of energy. It's threefold in nature instead of twofold in nature, which ours is. You know, we have electrons and protons, but Havona energy has three elements, right? And that's why they call it triada. Okay, it's the paradise trinity type of energy. And why would that be? Because the Havona we know was created by what? The not the creator son, but the infinite son and the infinite spirit.
turtle
Okay.
son.
Yeah, the primary son, right? And since they are part of the Trinity, what would you end up with but a trifold universe, which is the central universe, right? Okay, and that's why they call it triodity. Now there's another one here that we don't know a whole lot about, and they don't tell us a whole lot about, but it's number 6. All right, Rodney, would you take number 6?
Well, of course, transcendental energy. This energy system operates on and from the upper level of paradise and only in connection with the Absonite peoples. On Uversa, it is denominated Tronasta.
That's good, Trinasta. Okay. So what kind of energy are we talking about here? This is the energy associated with all the Absonite people, transcendental people, right? That's what it's considered, transcendental energy. It's different than normal energy. Okay. We still have one more, Monada, but we're out of time, unfortunately. I can't believe the whole hour's gone by already.
What?
So let's take, it goes fast, doesn't it? Just like that, gone. So let's take up 7 next time, Manada, and this is the energy of, it says akin to divinity. And this is what we would talk about with non-spiritual energy systems of the Universal Father. So we'll talk about that next time. So let's quit there. Let me stop the share and let's have a little prayer and we'll close for the night. Okay. Is everybody totally confused?
Yes.
I think we should study that one more time.
It's a lot. It's a lot out there. I told you this is a very hard paper and all the way through it. So nothing
Go
easy
back.
about it.
Go back and
Yeah.
watch it time after time.
Yeah.
It's such a hard time. I keep going, trying to listen to the ones that I've missed. They keep sending me to something another and I get tangled up in cloud and it just takes, I can't see some of the other ones. It takes
Yeah.
a long time to get. I'm just not computer savvy.
I'm
If
just
I-
going to have to
if I
give you a
miss it-
roadmap.
If I miss it Tuesday or Thursday night, chances of me going back and finding it are pretty slim. Thank you.
Well, I send you the videos in your email. Can you not click on those? Millie?
Yeah, I'm supposed to be able to just click on that and see it. And that's what it used to
Yeah.
be. But now it just
Yeah.
sends me to the cloud or to that other thing that you do.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can.
Well, it is on the
finagle-
website. I
It
try
only
to get
takes
it
about
on the
45
website.
It only takes about 45 minutes to find one of your.
Yeah.
One of the
That's
ones
not
I-
good.
And I want it squished down so I can see it when it comes up. It's really big and the
Yeah.
end it goes off the ends. And I click on it, it come down and I'll watch it for a while. Then it goes really big again. I don't know why. But,
Well,
you
let
know,
me
it
tell you a
just-
little secret, Millie. On our website, I have 4 different versions, and I think it's the last listed version is only 360 pixels, so it's a small one. You can actually see that on your cell phone. So that's why I do it 4 different versions like that. So try one of the
Thank you.
others if you can't see it better, you know. All right,
Okay,
everybody.
thank-
Let's say a little prayer and we will close for tonight. Rodney, would you like to close us in prayer tonight?
Sure.
Okay.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we're very thankful for the time that we've had once again to study this great revelation. We very much thank Roger for his ability to explain this difficult subject on mind, on matter, and energy and matter. And we hope that we can assimilate this and be able to share it with friends and family. And we say all this, in your will be done. Amen.
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 And thank you for everyone
Thank
that
you.
joins us at home.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
please come
everybody. I
see us
enjoyed it.
again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See y'all next time, Tuesday, I guess, right?
See
All
you.
right, let me stop the video here. Yeah.